My name is Jordan Lely and I'm with Lely Kilkenny, and I'm here with Christian von Teichman, and we're just going to go through selective dry cow therapy and Christian's process for doing so on this farm. So Christian, might say when you start up with robots and how long they are in and how many cows you're milking.
Yeah, so the robots went in 2013. We're milking 120 cows roughly. So it's 11 years now, the robots.
How long have you been doing selective dry cow therapy?
So yeah, we've been doing selective dry cow therapy for about 8 years, I'd say. We started off about 8 years ago. We were picking cows out that were just say below 200,000, 250,000, but fairly quickly moved on to using selective dry cow therapy in cows higher, with sort of 300,000, maybe even 400,000, depending on their history and the information we were able to get from the robot.
You would have been one of the early adopters of doing selective dry cow therapy 7 or 8 years ago. Would have been fairly uncommon to be doing. So what made you start doing it?
Yeah, so look, it's been flagged for quite a while already that actually, there'll be some level of selective dry cow therapy towards down the road. Obviously now that's law, now it's since last year or 2 years ago. So that was one of the main reasons. Plus the fact was, we saw the information we were getting from the robots, which, the information was vast, but you were able to make really great decisions using that information. So I suppose that was really one of the big reasons. We would have worked closely with the vet college also. And again, they would have been very good in actually helping us determine which cows they felt needed selective dry cow therapy, or who would need actually, say, antibiotic tubes for drying off. So I suppose just to go through it, basically our decision-making process is basically down to, we look through each individual cow. Mm-hmm. I don't create a report. I look through each individual cow and I look at did she have a history of mastitis treatment throughout that lactation or not. That's the first thing. If she did have a treatment history, she will be treated in that particular quarter only. Then the second thing where we look at is overall is through the milk quality, is the cell count and the conductivity. So if there's anything there where we feel that it's too high or it's very erratic, then we might pull that cow out for treatment.
Okay, so it might necessarily be 200,000 or 300,000. It might just be that if her cell count is more up and down throughout the year.
Yeah, but look, if we had a cow now and she's say 200,000 and anything even 200,000 to 400,000, okay, and she's no history of mastitis, she's maybe no conductivity, but just swinging up and down, she might be treated and she might not.
So if there was a cow that, say, was a bit up and down throughout the year, so she might be, say, 300,000, what would you do with like a cow that's a 300,000 cell count? Or what else are you looking at then? Yeah,
so obviously, as I said, the first thing is if she had any case of mastitis, that would be a red flag. If she's kind of consistently at 300,000, hasn't had any other issues than that, and her conductivity is fine, I would actually use just selective dry cow therapy for her also. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Another thing where we also do is tend to give the cows slightly longer and the heifers longer dry cow period. That's pretty important too. So I'd be saying heifers around 80-85 days, cows 70-75 days dry period. Another thing I suppose that's important is if you have a cow, let's say, and you're in June and she's had a case of mastitis, you treat her and she improves, and then after a week or 2 weeks she flares up again, you might give her a second round. And if she flares up a third time, generally what I would do is I would dry her off in that quarter then. Without dry cow tubes, obviously, just maybe milking.
You just literally stop milking.
Well, you can't obviously give her dry cow tubes.
So you just stop milking that particular quarter.
That quarter. And invariably what we found is actually that with such a long dry cow period, that quarter actually is cured.
Okay. And then when you go to dry off that cow, actual dry her off in the other 3 quarters, what are you doing with her?
So if she's fine, if her cell count is good and everything else is good, she'll be dried off with selective dry cow therapy in the other 3 quarters. And I won't touch the teat that's been dried off already, because obviously she's sealed herself off, and that I think you're only doing more damage by reintroducing antibiotics in there.
Over this year and last year, what roughly has been your cell count for the year?
Yeah, so kind of it's consistently about, I'd say, below 100,000 would be our cell count.
How many selective dry cow therapy tubes are you using for antibiotic wise?
Yeah, so like I said, 120 cows. we'll probably cull about 20 cows as a round figure, just for fertility, for lameness, mastitis, things like that. So we're drying off about 100 cows, say 400 tubes, 400 dry cow tubes, so that would technically be, and we're using about 35 dry cow tubes.
Okay.
Only.
So because you have 100 cows, multiplied by 4 teats a cow, you have 400 teats per se.
Yes.
A lot of cows are only getting one
That's right.
antibiotic tube.
Yes.
Some cows are obviously getting more than that, but some cows are only getting one tube. So
basically, I suppose, yeah, that's right. So I suppose part of the decision-making process is, so if we know a cow had, let's say, mastitis in the right front quarter, as an example, and it comes to drying her off, if her other 3 quarters are fine, no conductivity issues and so on, then I would just give her a dry cow tube in the affected quarter in the right front, for argument's sake, and then teat seal all around.
okay.
Some cows, you will have a situation where you have a cow where she has high cell count. She hasn't had a case of mastitis. Her cell count might be 400,000 or 500,000. She's going up and down like a yo-yo a bit, you know. And then in that kind of a situation, I would just give her 4 tubes, one in each quarter. Four antibiotic tubes, and one in each quarter.
Okay.
Because
you don't know.
Don't know it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So out of the 400 teats per se, then there's only about 35 teats getting antibiotic this year.
Correct.
And same with last year?
Roughly the same last year, yeah.
So,
same last year.
And then I suppose you started selective dry cow therapy back in, say 7 or 8 years ago.
Yes.
And you started doing it per quarter pretty much straight away.
I'd say the first year we were a little bit easier on it, in the sense that we just took cows that had a cell count below 200,000. Fairly quickly then anything above that got had any counts above that got 4 tubes full stop. But then 1 or 2 years after that, we started looking at the information more clearly and sort of saying, right, this cow, she had a case of mastitis, and she had it in one particular quarter, so she's going to get treated there only. And another cow maybe is showing up in one particular quarter, having higher conductivity, so we'll do her with that.
Okay.
That's basically how we made the decision. So, and now we're in the situation where, like, I could have cows coming at the moment, like I have cows being dried off, and there may be up to 400,000, and they're not getting a dry cow tube
because they've been pretty much flat
good
for the year.
They're coming towards the end of lactation. Their cell count will go up at this time of year. They've had no issues with mastitis. You know, you can see the milk. I check the milk, you know, as they're milking, or I'll strip them also. And if it all seems clean and fine, then to my mind, a longer dry period is as important as sticking in antibiotic tubes.
Okay. And in terms of the information you're using, are you doing any milk recording outside of what the robot is doing?
No.
Okay.
So it's all just information that the robots are giving us. One is that's the event history, whether she's had any a case of mastitis. Second of all is conductivity from each quarter, and then the third thing is where there's a somatic cell count of the whole of all the milk. Okay. That's the only information we're using.
Okay. So I suppose the difference between conductivity and somatic cell count is conductivity is more of an indication of actual clinical mastitis. So generally what happens when you have clinical mastitis, the salt levels will increase because they're fighting infection in that quarter. Salt levels increase, that's where the conductivity figure increases. So the actual figure itself is irrelevant, it's whether it's increased a significant amount. So if you have a high conductivity cow, it's generally, if you go and draw her out, it'll be cruds. Whereas you can get a subclinical cow, which is your cell count. So you could have a cow that's a millionaire and she has no actual cruds. There's no quarter showing up. So that's what Christian's saying, that he could have a cow that's a millionaire for the year or 600,000 for the year, but no quarter flags up. So unless you had cell count data, you wouldn't know that cow was a subclinical cow. So, and even if you did do milk recording, she could be good for 1 month, and then subclinical cows generally go up and down. So she could be 600,000 for 3 weeks and then she could back down for another month. If you get her on a good day on milk recording, she looks like the best cow in the herd. If you get her on a bad day, she'll look like the worst cow. But the problem is she'll be up and down, and you won't know unless you can see the graph for the year to say, right, she has not had clinical mastitis, but she has subclinical mastitis, which still needs to be treated when you're drying her off. Okay, so would you see the need to milk record outside the robot data that you're getting?
No, not really, no, because I mean, information you're going to get from official milk recording is pretty much what we're getting anyways, and it's only going to do a somatic cell count, which is effectively a CMT. Well, they'll count the cells actually in the milk sample, whereas we're doing a CMT, but that's, to my mind, equally accurate. We have the double bonus that we also have the conductivity information. So, I mean, we have two sets of information we can go by. Whereas if you're just going by the milk recording data, which might be done once a month or once every 8 weeks or whatever you're going with, you're going to pick a cow on that one day only. And as you said earlier, you know, she could be really low or she could be really high. At least with a robot, you're getting information every day, which is the important thing.
You said earlier that so you're milking 120 cows, and roughly 20 cows are culled every year.
That's right, yeah.
What exactly are they culled on?
Yeah, so like our empty rate would be about, so we have an 8-week breeding season, and our empty rate is about, or this year was it's 11%. So that's 11 cows round figures. Then another 9 cows would have gone for lameness issues, cell count issues. This year actually we sold 3 cows for cell count issues, which had been earmarked already last year, as in that they would not be here for the next lactation.
Okay, so how would you flag a cell count cow that needs to go?
Generally, it's kind of it's a combination of things. So I mean, for me to cull a cow, it's kind of a combination of things. It's kind of if she's got lameness, long-term lameness issues, if she's got long-term cell count issues, plus age. If those are kind of factors, you know, plus maybe fertility, meaning she might be late lactation. So if she's kind of got a combination of all three, she's out the door. You know, that's really it.
So you do have robots 11 years. You would have been one of the first ones, or a very early adopter anyway. How have you found the robots over the last 11 years?
Yeah, look, I suppose one of the concerns always with robots is, you know, how long will they last? They're a pretty big investment. There's no question about it. You know, we've had them 11 years. You know, technically, I don't see any reason why they can't be here for another 11 years. You know, all the components can be replaced. I remember Niall said to me at the beginning, they'll do a great job milking cows and they'll give you lots of information. And he's bang on there. Like, they do all that, you know, a huge amount of information. And to my mind, people probably don't use that information enough to actually make full use of it, like selective dry cow therapy.
So actually, just when we're talking about cows as well, what production figures, yield-wise and solids-wise, have you been doing on average the last couple of years?
Yeah, so like the herd EBI is pretty high. Like I think it's about 240 is the herd EBI. Last year we produced 7,500 litres per cow. I think it was 7,600 litres a cow, 601 kilos of solids. Okay. Right, very happy about the one.
Yeah, well done.
Because the year before it was 598. That's annoying.
You got over it. So 601 this year or last year. So what are they?
23. Yeah.
What are they going to do projected?
This year? Yeah. Realistically, this year they're going to be back. I think they're going to be back 5 to 10%. There's no question about it. Like, I can see the figures. Like, it's disappointing this year, but it was just a year that was in it. Like, very bad year. Like, obviously, just such a bad start in the spring. You can see we're way behind. In fact, in springtime at one point we were back 15%. We've reeled that in. The autumn's actually been quite good now this year. A bit too little, too late, but you know, helps. Yeah. So that has brought up the solids again a little bit. And
this, just the type of cow that you have here, what is the type of cow? And you are only spring calving?
Yeah, so we're 100% spring calving. Start calving, let's say the 1st of February, 8-week breeding season. So the last cow, I think this year is due to calve on the 25th of March. That's heifers and cows. The type of cow, well, traditionally, I suppose, if you go way back in time, we would have been breeding sort of, I suppose, your sort of typical winter milk herd, 8,000 litre cow, 9,000 litre cow. When the EBI system came in, we went for EBI, and that's what we've been doing consistently. I always look for a balanced approach to breeding an EBI, so rather than going 100% for fertility or solids or milk or whatever it is, I'd have a balance of, say, 50% fertility, 50% milk and constituents. And it stood as well, I think. Cows doing well. They're not an overly big cow. I'd say their average weight would be about 550 kilos. It would have been a lot bigger traditionally. Definitely smaller now with the breeding. Yeah.
And say the 8-week breeding season you do have, how many weeks of that is AI? And
8 weeks.
8 weeks AI.
8 weeks AI.
All with the collars?
All with collars, yeah. It works. Again, the collars have been working exceptionally well. No problems there.
the robot setup here was obviously went into the existing parlour, and it would be quite exposed in terms of weather. Is there any issues with it?
No issues at all. The robots are kind of facing west, you could sort of say. You've got the cow shed on the west side there, so that will give a little bit of protection. I suppose, like if it's a crazy driving rain, it can blow a little bit in here, but it doesn't really affect the cows milking. It doesn't really get wet. There is a canopy over it, so it's not a problem.
No issues with frost, or
not particularly where we are. We're lucky enough we're close to the coast, so you don't have the real low temperature you might have in the Midlands and so on. But yeah, well, look, we've had like 2018. I think it was. That was pretty tough going. We had to do the same as everybody else, put in blowers, put in electrical heaters to heat up the cords and everything. But look,
yeah, it's not a problem anyway. It's not.
We survived,
You have a 7,500 litre cow. At peak, what would they be hitting on the road? Like, so milkings wise and yield wise, what are you hitting in April, May, June? Yeah,
so when out full time in grass, April, May, June, like that period, they'd be doing probably 2.3 milkings. Okay. I would say, not overly high. Yield-wise, they'd be doing about 35 kilos, 34, 35 kilos. Solids would be kind of 2 kilos or 2.1 kilos. Yeah, it would be around that.
So you have 120 cows, 20 cows are already gone. So you've culled them before.
So we sold, look, we're in nitrogen aggregation, so we're kind of stuck for a stocking rate. So what we did in our last 2 years is we sold the empties in end of September, mid to end of September. Price was good. That worked well. Takes the pressure off, extends the grass for the rest of the cows.
So basically from say September onwards, you have 100
cows.
100 cows. Okay. So when are they all fully dry?
Yeah, so we started drying off, as I said, about 25th of November. But basically, it's around 10, 15 a week we're drying off from the 25th of November on. Like this year, we have 18 cows that could be milked through Christmas right through about to the 15th of January. Okay. But we'll probably dry them off. Okay. Just don't see much point really, I mean, milk price is good, I know, but like it's 15 cows probably in the end, and it's not really worth it.
And how is this the first year shutting down robots, or do you normally shut off?
Shut them down last year also.
Okay.
It's probably this third year that we've completely shut down, second or third year that we shut them down. Again, with the robots, it's not a huge pile of pressure, but because of our compact calving, there's little point really to milk through a few cows, I would have said.
Because you're offloading your culls and then you only have your late lactation ones, which aren't even really that late.
That's exactly it.
You just have those 15 or so. Okay, so fair enough. And then you're calving the first week of...
Well, the heifers calved on, say, from the 20th of January. So all the heifers are synchronized and they're all calved on, say, from the 20th of January to the 30th of January. Okay. And then the cows basically start on the 1st of February. Okay. Obviously, there'll be a few earlier ones.
Okay, so you have a lot of the heifers usually calved.
All the heifers.
All the heifers are
calved.
All the
heifers will be calved. They're all synchronized. Yep. So what we do is we breed 50 heifers. Mm-hmm. We had last year and this year we had 68% conception with the fixed time AI with sex semen. So what we do is we'll keep whatever number of replacements. So we're keeping about 25 replacements this year. We'll pick out the ones we want, high CPI ones, earliest calving ones, and they'll all be calving from the 28th of January to the 1st of February roughly. They're due I think it's the 25th of January is actually their due date.
Okay. Okay, so this is cow 443 that you dried off a week or so ago. So the first thing you would have looked at on her before you dried her off is her events.
That's right, yeah. So you go to events and you can see there that she's had no actual mastitis events throughout the year. That's the first thing I would look at.
Okay, and then because she's had no events, you're thinking, okay, she hasn't had mastitis, she hasn't been treated. What's the next thing you then look at? So then I go into milk quality. And you can see here now on the graph that her right front quarter was a bit high, went a bit high. So that would be her conductivity. Even though she didn't have mastitis, her conductivity went way up from the middle of August on, say. So in her case, she's getting a dry cow tube in the right front quarter. Okay, and the reason she's not getting it in the other quarters is because...
But you can see here in the rest of the quarters, she's been consistently low. In all of them, she's been 100%. There's no reason to give her anything else.
And then this bottom line then is her cell count itself. So her cell count has actually been pretty much under 200,000 as well. But because she's been high in the right front, conductivity-wise.
That's a red flag.
Okay. So when you dried her off then, so if we go back to events then, you'll be able to see that when she got dried off, she got Capervin and teat sealer, and it was in the right front.
Correct. Yeah. And obviously teat seal in all 4 quarters.
Of course. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to just look at another cow. So 563. So you would have dried her off there recently as well. So the first thing again you would have looked at is events.
That's right. Yeah, events. The first thing we can see there is she had a case of mastitis there.
On the 19th of November.
In 2 quarters.
The left rear and the right front.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. And she got Sinulox.
That's right.
Okay.
She responded well, but obviously that's so close to drying off, there's no way she wouldn't be treated. And
this was her cell count for the year. So this is just the cell count.
So you can see from her cell count that she's a fair yo-yo. She's got, she's very high there now. Didn't have any actual case of mastitis. When I did a CMT of her, she did have slightly curdled milk. I didn't treat her. But in her case now, she was given 4 tubes of her drying off in each quarter.
Okay. At the start, so the 19th of February was when she calved. So she was quite low when she calved down. She went up for a day or two to 3.2 million. She was pretty much down then until maybe April. Went back up again then to around 2 million. Kind of hovered on and off 2 million for the summer. And then since August, she's been pretty much back down to under 400,000.
Yes.
But then literally spiked up to the 3 million when she actually had mastitis.
That's right. Actually, in her case, what actually happened was she actually was dried off in 2 quarters, which were high cell count. And you can see there that when she was dried off, her cell count dropped off.
Okay, so if I'm going to now just show the lines of conductivity. So if you can see here, that's the right rear conductivity coming in. That's the right front. That's the left rear. And then you have the left front. So we can see there straight away the 2 greener ones are, if I hover over them, so that's the right rear and that's the left front, which is the ones that she got treated on for conductivity. So you can see that those lines are much higher than the other 2 lines for conductivity. So you're saying you dried off those quarters after she got mastitis then?
That's right.
But at dry off then, she got full. So if I go back to her events then,
she got Cepravin.
She got Capervin for those quarters.
Correct. But you only got those 2 because the other 2 were dried off.
Yep.
Right.
So we'll have a look at A14. So again, I'll click onto her events. So
she was a good example now. She had mastitis back in August, 2 quarters, right front and right rear. Okay. She was treated and responded very well to the treatment. As you can see here, she came well back again. Cell count dropped down. What we did then was, though, she was selected for treatment with antibiotics in those 2 quarters, right front, right rear, at drying off.
Okay, so she only got it in the 2 quarters that she had.
She only got in the 2 quarters, yeah.
And as you can see on her graph, she's been pretty much below 200,000 for the whole year, bar her flare up in mid-August.
Yeah.
Where you treated, and as you say, she recovered, and then you're only treating the quarters.
Exactly.
Okay. So 799, we'll look at her events. So she has had no treatment for mastitis throughout the year. But if we look at her graph, I suppose this is what we're kind of on about earlier with the different points of data. So she went up to 3.3 million there, and on and off throughout the year, she's 800,000 there, and she is 900,000 there. So I suppose this is just showing that if you got her on a good day on milk according, she could be very low, or if you got her on a bad day, she could look very high. So you can see the whole graph for the whole year, basically.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, in this case here now, this cow here would have been, she didn't get any treatments for mastitis, as I said. She had no actual chronic or actual case of mastitis. In her case, she probably won't be treated with any dry cow tubes.
Because she only has technically, 4 spikes throughout the year?
4 spikes. And especially now, if you look here, like from August on, she is
below 200,000 easily.
Yes.
Yeah. So because she's only the 4 or 5 spikes, But the point is that if you were only milk according that, if you got her on the bad days, she'd
Yes.
look like a bad cow, and you'd have to do her all. But because you can see her graph, you're choosing. Well, her cell count is probably only about 300,000. So
Exactly.
Okay. So 799. This is the graph form of conductivity and cell count. So that's showing you the whole year, her whole lactation. But if you want more detail or to see the figures, you're flicking back into to see the actual report.
That's
so
right.
This is her milking, every milking she's ever had, and her milk yield expected, her cell count, her impact that she's actually contributing to the cell count of the herd, and each quarter conductivity. So if you do feel like you need a bit more detail,
you have that
you're looking at
information.
this.
You have the daily information there right in front of you.
So 799, just to see her lactation overview. So this is just where we're getting the information. So she's now with her lactation. She's still milking, but she'll be dry in the next week or so. So as a first calver, she did 6,500 litres. Second calf, she's 7.2. And this year, she is just going to do just shy of 8,000 litres. And then that's how much meal she's fed, her fat and protein, her milkings is there as well. So 2.4 milkings. Her fat total is 387 kgs of fat sold and 270 kilos of protein, which is 600 kilos milk solids?
650. 670.
670 kilos milk solids on 1.474 tonne.
Yeah.
I'm here with Christian, and we're going to go through the most recently asked questions on selective dry cow therapy. And obviously, Christian's doing a high percentage of selective dry cow therapy, so we're just going to go through the questions. So, look, I'll just get straight into it. So, what is the protocol after drying off? I suppose more so on feeding and bedding regimes.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I was going to just cover quickly where we dry off beforehand. So, 14 days before the cows are dried off, they're put on reduced milking and also reduced feed in the robots. That's just to help them dry off or lower the milk amount effectively. Once then we've actually dried them off, the feed stays the same, as in we put them onto about 10 kilos of dry matter intake. We don't put them on restricted feed for a week or anything like that. We put them straight onto normal feed levels for dry cows. We don't restrict water, obviously. The bedding, basically, we make sure that each cow has one cubicle per cow, at least, and would bed them twice a day for the first week at least, because you're obviously still going to see a lot of cows, even with the teat seal, you will see a number of cows leak afterwards. So hygiene is, I think, very important at that stage. Yeah.
Okay, and so for your cubicles, when you're bedding twice a day, are you just literally scraping and liming, or is there anything else?
No, just cubicle and lime. Or sorry,
Okay.
lime and scraping, exactly, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And so leakage, I suppose, is a big fear that people have when you're doing selective dry cow therapy, that leakage is basically a sign that I should have used something else because she's clearly not sealed.
Well, I mean, I can only talk from my own experience, and a lot of lads would have used peat sealer, even if they're using dry cow tubes, antibiotic tubes, and they will always see that when you're stripping the cow out at once she's calved. I've actually never or rarely come across a cow who had no teat seal in her. Do you know what I mean? So the leakage, that's the fact of life. The other thing also, sorry, I didn't mention it before, was once the cow is dried off, what we do is we headlock them for about 2 hours to 3 hours after they've been before, so they don't lie down. That just gives the teeth a chance to settle in the teeth canal and helps seal it that little bit more. I mean, I suppose realistically, you're probably talking like when you go down the next morning and look in the cubicles, you probably see like out of a bunch of 10 or 15 cows, you might see one or two cubicles a little bit milky, not a serious amount. And within 2 or 3 days, that would be down to zero nearly,
Okay.
So that's why it's important, I would say, especially in the first week, just to make sure hygiene is very important and very important.
Okay. And do you have a cut-off limit in lines of yield? So if there's cows doing too much yield, or do you not? Is it just based on dry-off
Today,
dates?
dried off today. Today is what, the 17th of December. We dried off the last of cows. These weren't supposed to be dried off until technically until the 10th of January. So they weren't even on a reduced milking program. Some of those were still giving 22 litres, so yeah, look, it's not a problem. I've done that many times before.
Okay. Do you culture any milk samples to see what antibiotic you're going to use, or are you just using the same antibiotic every year on the ones that do need antibiotics?
Yeah, no. So again, what we do is we took part with Animal Health Ireland in with their dry cow selected dry cow therapy program. So again, with that you get a visit from your vet and so on. Part of that is that you have to take milk samples and have to culture samples, etc. So we did that from, I think it was 15 cows. We took samples.
Okay.
Again, results came back Staph aureus, Strep uterus. Those were the two main ones. Cepravin is our kind of preferred go-to dry cow antibiotic, and we've been using it for a number of years. And again, it's showing that it works for us again. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Have you had any negatives when you're doing selective dry cow therapy?
Um, A couple of years ago, yeah, we did actually. We had two cows that we lost. They were dried off with selective dry cow therapy. We thought we did everything right. Next morning we came in and one of them was dead and the second one was in the process of dying. Called the vet, but unfortunately we couldn't save her. Um, you know, it's down to, making sure that the protocol is 100%. You have to be 100%, like hygiene, wearing gloves, and wiping the teeth with alcohol wipes or with cotton buds with alcohol, not handling the teats again afterwards and so on, or before the usual process. It's critical. And when you think you're doing it right, you can only do it better because again, we thought we did everything right and we still lost two cows.
Okay. Yeah, but look, I suppose it didn't turn you off it anyway, obviously, and you're
No,
still.
look, it will still do it. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a great thing. I mean, look, we have to do it. It's not a choice thing here. We have
Mhm,
to do it anyway. You know what I mean? So
mhm.
if it works for 20 cows, no reason it should work for 30 cows and then for 40. You know what I mean? That's the way I look
Yeah.
at it. I mean, initially when we started off doing it, we started off with the Thai protocol of like 200,000, and every year you just push yourself on a little bit more. So that's the way
Yeah,
we
so
do.
you started at a relatively baseline, a lowish, and you've been working up over the years to get to where you are
Yes,
now.
so the recommendations are any cow below 200,000 and has had no incidence of mastitis or no count above 200,000. She would be a candidate for selective dry cow therapy. Anything above that, it has to get technically antibiotics. But pretty quickly after 1 or 2 years, we pushed to 300,000 and even in some cases 400,000. Again, it's very much down to the cow history. I mean, I'm not saying every cow with 40,000 should
Yeah,
be selective dry cow therapy. Yeah.
of course. You're looking at each cow individually and her history and her events and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's fair enough. So during lactation, when you are treating cows for mastitis, do you use tubes, injections? Do you go down bolus route? Is there anything
Yeah.
different?
Uh, Yeah, we've used the bolus for starters. I don't know, jury's out on that. I don't know whether it works or not. Yeah, I'm not really gonna. We've tried it because I thought it might work.
Mhm.
I know that a vet in the vet college told me a couple of years ago that treating cows during lactation from mastitis is you get a pretty low response, to the actual to how well it works. Now, I'm not quite sure if that's true or not. Generally, we would treat cows. So if your cow has a high cell count, but she doesn't have
Mhm.
any clinical signs of mastitis, I tend to leave her and I might give her a bolus. Okay. But if I do a California mastitis test and it shows that in one quarter it's just a little bit uh, curdled, but
Out nowhere, yeah.
but no clinical signs of mastitis, then what I would say is a bolus. If And then she would be a candidate also who will get treated in that quarter when she comes to drying off with an antibiotic tube, like a dry cow tube, okay, when it comes to drying off. But if a cow has definitely got curdles, she'll get Sinulox. That's what we use at home here is Sinulox. And
And
generally, I
do you
also
tube or inject or?
both tube and injection. That's
Okay.
normally what we do. And then what we would do is if she gets it a second time, we'll put her on to a slightly longer course of maybe for 1 week. And if again she keeps coming back, well, we just dry her off in that quarter,
Okay, fair enough.
you
Fair
know.
enough. If teat ends were damaged or they were rough, would that change your mind on the selected dry cow therapy, whether she gets sealed or not, or are you taking that into account, or do you even have teat end damage? I suppose.
Yeah, look, you'll always have damage. We had, but again, today there were two cows, very slight teeth and damage. I cleaned them as well as I could with the alcohol wipes, and they looked fairly clean. But I actually gave them milking cow tubes, just give them some level of protection for the next 24, 48 hours. That's all. So I suppose I would say of all the cows, they're milking 120 cows. Of all the cows were dried off, I'd say we had probably 3 or 4 cows with teat end damage where I'll call it concerned, and they got milking cow tubes just to give them a little bit of protection. That's all. And
Okay,
plus,
so you're taking that into account as well as
it's just
everything else.
it's an extra precaution. That's all.
What else do I have here? Teat drip during the year. What are you using?
Yeah, so we're using the Lely one, the Lely, I think it's Pergo.
Yeah.
Got a very high level of lactic acid and salicylic acid. Again, look, it's worked. We've used it for years now. I wouldn't be telling anybody what to use and not to use. I think what works for somebody is the most important thing, if they're happy and have good results with it, really.
Yeah, and I suppose having teat conditioners, good teat conditioners and 9 teat dip is probably most important, especially when you're coming to teat end
Yeah.
damage and things like that you wanted. Yeah. How many cows would you treat during the year for mastitis? During their lactation, I should say. During their lactation, how many roughly are you case of mastitis are you
So
treating?
I had to look it up before I came on to the system with you. But we had this year we treated about 10% of the cows, 12%, 10 or 12% of the cows, not the exact figure, but it's about that 10 or 12% of the cows were treated. Of those 10 or 12% of cows, about half of them would have been treated twice, and about 3 of them would have been treated even 3 times. Yeah. So the ones that have been treated a number of times, they're gone. They're culled. They're just too much trouble. And they were happened just to be older cows. They were kind of earmarked already last year to go, and then we didn't send them. And well, this year they're gone.
Okay. Would you treat many cows during lactation for other issues, so say feet or health issues other than mastitis?
No, look, I mean, you might have an odd cow with pneumonia, sort of, it's very, very rare. We worm them kind of once in sort of May, June period. Lameness, we don't really have an issue with. We foot bath them once a week with formalin, and so we don't have a problem with that. Yeah, so Mortallera would have been a problem on the farm here, and again, the regular foot bathing, it's not an issue at all, basically.
Okay. So basically, then the only time you're treating them, the only cows that are getting antibiotics are actually mastitis cows and/or cows that dry off, basically.
Exactly. Pretty much. Yeah, you can have 1 or 2 other cases of cow off form and you give it, but basically, no, that's it. That's 99% of it is that, yeah.
Okay. I think that's actually kind of all the questions I have on my list. So I think we can end it there. So
No problem.
thanks very much for watching.